Good afternoon, it's Joyful Hermit. I'm back. Good grief. I had to call Apple Care. Thank heavens I got it. But it's a terrible thing. Just this pain in my life. Just to get the energy and to call Apple Care. Because I thought, oh, I'll have, it'll be a long wait and all of this. But it wasn't. It was very simple. And then something on that screen said that I would have to have proof of ownership and of my laptop, and I thought I have no idea where that would be, and I didn't need it. It was very simple, except I wouldn't have been able to do any of it. But this young man helped me get. What had happened was is I guess I've been storing all my videos on my laptop. So all of that space, 300 videos. This is video 301. So that's why I had no space. And that's why it was causing my computer to jam up. And I thought it was broken and all, but it wasn't. It was just stock full of my yap. That was all it was. So, but he also helped get he couldn't help get it transferred, my 22 videos that are on this other account transferred to this one. But he got my phone set up so that I can video with my phone. Maybe I'll show you some of the gardens, and that'll be more interesting than just looking at me. But so he got that set up, but it was even hard to, um, I had finally had to tell him, how I was hit by this drunk kid, and I have this arachnoiditis, and the pain is so bad. I'm way past pain pill time. Um, that's what I don't like. The doctor changed it to every 4 hours with this one, but not enough, and it doesn't work well with my body. But I literally could hardly think and follow his little instructions of clicking or double clicking. That's just how it gets. And then I'm also on very bad strain from what happened Friday. And it's, God had to show me something big. Very painful. Very, very painful. And for a mother or a parent, anyone. But my daughter and her friend, she has a wonderful friend, man friend, and my grandson. We had lunch, and they had something stacked up behind it. They got there a little late. So we had an hour, if not a little less. That was it. And I realize it's intentional because, and during the lunch, I couldn't say anything about how I was, but she noticed my shoulders were all scrunched up. And she says, "Oh, your shoulders, you just look so tense." Or maybe I said that she asked something and I said, well, I'd hurt my shoulders. And she doesn't want to hear, and she's always been the one that I could confide in. And that was like 2 weeks ago. She had texted asking, "How are you feeling?" And I wrote back. And I hadn't had the MRI yet. And then I asked how she was, and she didn't respond. And I asked how the grandson was. She didn't respond. I tried a couple days later, and there was no response. Not like her, but it's becoming more like her now. So it has been where she doesn't want to see me, and rarely calls or anything. I've learned not to call her. Generally, I don't text her because I knew. I've known it's been probably 11 years or so. She had wanted me to move out to Washington, where they had moved. And I had to leave where I was before because of the crazy neighbor, and my protective order was running out. So I went out there. But even right before I got there, things had shifted with her. And when I got out there, it was very bad. And because immediately out there, this neighbor I had, I thought my kids were so excited. Oh, mom's going to get a fresh start, getting away from this crazy neighbor that wanted her dead, and, all the problems I had with that neighbor lady that was mentally ill. And it was just terrible. And then the police telling me I really needed to move. Of course, my kids wanted me to move long before that. But I wasn't going to get my money out. It wasn't my money. That was the problem. It was my mom and dad's hard-earned money. That's all I have and I felt very bad. I just thought of how hard they worked all their lives and just to lose it. So I stuck it out with the crazy lady and her creepy husband and creepy adult son for 6 years. Until then, the police said, no, you've just got to. But by then, the market had turned around, and I lost some money on the house, but I didn't lose what I would have lost had I even tried or could have sold it right away in 2008 because the market had just crashed. That the economy had crashed and the housing market had gone. And I'd done all this landscaping, and I would have lost, at least 50,000 if I could have even sold the place back then, if people weren't buying because it was so bad. So I hung in there, but it finally got so bad with the neighbor people that the police said, we're sorry, but they're not going to move and they're not going to quit on you. And to try to get another protective order then, they were threatening my life. It was terrible what I went through, just terrible. And then my daughters had said the grandchildren couldn't come because too dangerous for them. She would yell things and do things when my little grandchildren were there. She turned the whole subdivision against me. So I moved out to where the daughter was. And I wished I hadn't. I wished I'd stayed in the Midwest where the other daughter was. And that upset that daughter. I upset her, but I fell in love with this island. It was just so gorgeous. And I thought, well, it truly will be a fresh start. And I ended up getting a house that I found out was a tear down. And that was bad. But what was really bad is as soon as I got out there, my neighbor, this neighbor man, he tried to take part of my land, part of my property, through some goofy law what King County and Seattle has called adverse possession, where if he could claim that he had taken care of that land for 10 years, he could have it for free. And I said no, and my aunt said, no, you can't do that. You can't just let someone take it. But so anyway, I was immediately with trouble with that neighbor man and then with the whole house there. I got into a bad deal. And it was just too much. My kids couldn't take they wanted this better life for their mother, and it was terrible. I have the worst luck. And they don't even know, my kids. I think the one daughter probably knows because she's the one that seemed to be able to take it. When I went on this trip over, I was going to be allowed to have a beautiful apartment from a friend in high school. I won't get into the whole detail, but it was in the south of France. And he was letting me have that apartment for 3 weeks. And sure enough, I had trouble as soon as I got to this little village in the south of France. And my life was endangered. I had to leave. I couldn't stay, and see, more trouble. Demonic. That was the lady that was the demoniac. And I was held against my will at her apartment in this little town called Gien in France. And I had to get out of there. And she also, I caught something really bad in my lungs. And I barely got back to the United States. I was so sick by the time I got back. And I was sick for about, it was a good 6 weeks with terrible lung from this lady over there. I caught this and nearly lost my life there too. So I just have terrible things happen in my life. Odd things. One after another after another. Now here I'm okay with the house and the neighbors. Well, except the one neighbor who sexually harassed me. Had to go to the police about that. But they know not to speak to me. And I don't. And I can call the police if I need. And okay, but he's just a pervert, is all. Old guy. I'm old. So it's always something. And then these 5 surgeries since I moved here and got into a house that I wouldn't have had I known. Found out I had the arachnoiditis. All this suffering. And then even after the first surgery 5 years ago, my daughter here was burned out. I came here then. They moved here, and I didn't know where to go. I needed a pain doctor. And at the time, the state that I was from and born in, they're very tight with pain meds. And I'm sorry, folks, that's my lot in life. I have to, that's the only medicine that will keep the pain down somewhat. I even had to get this big pump here. It's in my abdomen bulging out to try to help keep it. It handles pain from the lumbar down, and it doesn't handle it well. It isn't handling it because of my knee. Now, the bottom part of my leg. And I have terrible neuropathy in the mornings. And in fact, now if I would try to get up, because I've been on the bed for a while with this Apple Care man helping. Probably spent an hour helping get my messed up laptop straightened around. But anyway, I would probably have trouble walking if I tried to get up right now. My feet go numb, and I get terrible pain in my lower legs. And that's just the start, because eventually I'll be paralyzed if I live long enough from the waist down, and if I don't keep pushing myself to get up and keep going. So, but even that surgery 5 years ago, the daughter who was here did come. I had to get myself there. But she came partway through the surgery, I guess, and waited. And this was a very extensive, serious surgery with a year recovery. And even with that, she waited and waited, kept asking, oh no, she'll be up to her room, she'll be up to her room. The surgery was done at such and such a time. And well, the hours went by, and my daughter kept asking. And then she finally knew something is terribly wrong with my mother. So she wandered around the hospital, big hospital, trying to find the surgery area. No, I'd been out of that for a few hours. And no, they hadn't sent me to the room. She was waiting in the room. So she found where the recovery was. Well, no, your mother's not in recovery. Well, then she found out I was in ICU recovery. And this is weird. When they found out that my daughter was looking for me, they had her come into the ICU recovery. In her clothes, had her come in because I was in trouble. I didn't know it, but I wasn't breathing. They couldn't keep me breathing. And so they had her because they were swamped with people, but they said, maybe since you're the daughter, she might recognize your voice or something. So they had my daughter in there. One guy died. She saw some guy die. Another one was vomiting, and she's squeamish. She used to not be. She was going to go to med school way back when. But she changed her majors and stuff to something else, but not because she was squeamish at all back then. But she's become that way. And she was supposed to yell anytime I would start to breathe. She was supposed to touch me, and say, I'm your daughter, and her name, and they hoped I'd recognize her voice, and she was just to yell at me anytime I'd breathe, breathe, keep breathing, because that's what they've been trying to do. They could not keep me breathing. And I remember when I started recognizing, I did try harder then to breathe. I remember for my daughter, I did. But otherwise, I wanted to be left alone. I didn't want to come back, But I didn't have a death experience with that surgery. But no, so something had gone terribly wrong, and they figured it was with the anesthetic. And when I had arrived at the hospital, I started to have one of my spinal headache pain sieges. And so they gave me a Demerol and Vistrol injection. And so I was way over medicated. They didn't, from the ER, or no, from the, I don't know who gave me that. It wasn't the ER I was in. Because I'd come to the hospital. I was in the prep for the surgery. Somehow the surgeon hadn't been told, or the anesthesiologist hadn't. So they figured that's why I wasn't breathing after surgery, why I couldn't come to. But boy, that scared my daughter. So I got to my room maybe at 2 a.m, and they had to change. It was right across from the nurse's station. But while she was doing that, somehow my drain tube from my spine came out, and all this blood and fluid got on my daughter's leg. It was summertime, so she had shorts on or something, or a skirt. And that horrified her, traumatized her. But she came the next morning with my grandson bearing gifts, and she'd had maybe 3 hours or 4 hours of sleep. She was so shaken by that. And it did help our relationship for a little bit, not long. And then and she did insist on getting home health coming, and my son got angry with me because he was convinced that I didn't want to go to a rehab place. And they did send me home too soon. The surgeon didn't know, but his PA was brutal. Made me leave after 2 days. The first night, well, I wasn't breathing, and they put some kind of ventilator on me or something to keep me breathing back in the room. And so I didn't sleep all that night. And then the next night, I didn't, because I'd been given the wrong medication. And I was hallucinating. They didn't give me an extended release. They gave me this amount of pain meds, plus I was on a morphine drip. But, I mean, brutal surgeries. Very painful. And extensive for my spine. It's fused halfway up. And what he had to do, though, to fix it all, and was very intricate. So, but after that, then, after she got the home health care, and she came for that, and my grandson stayed that night because he was so shaken too. Nearly lost Gaga. He calls me Gaga. Has since he was about 8 months old. Probably right. Perfect name for me. But he was shaken, but my daughter then went back to this odd, hard to be around me, difficult to be around me. And it's been like that. So it's touch and go. And she feels terrible, but, and then when something happens, it's a little better, or she, is concerned, obviously, but, and cares. All my kids do. I realize that. They love me. When I had the head injury, they all flew out. And, but I know what it is now. And I texted Dr. H yesterday and told him we've had it wrong. We've had it wrong all along about my kids. And we know what it is now. That it was too much suffering growing up. I'd figured that much out. But I started researching, and there's a lot of research now on how hard it is on children to have a disabled parent. If it's a single disabled parent and they're reared by that parent, it's even worse. And if that parent is the mother, for whatever reasons, it is even more worse on them. Has lasting effects. But as adults, though, and then when you compound it with my life, I have so many things go wrong all the time. It's always something. Like when I got to that island and the neighbor man was pulling that after I'd just left a horrific neighbor situation. And my kids were so happy, like, good, you're going to finally have a better life. They wanted mom to have a better life, and I didn't. It was terrible what I went through. But, and then the house, I had to work on that house and just trauma. I have a traumatic life, and the kids they can't take it anymore. They can't. It's become a psychological thing. And with this one here, see, I would confide. And so, like at this lunch the other day, she even put up her hands like this. She didn't even notice she was doing it. When I wanted to tell her, that I'd gotten the MRI results back. No. I wasn't allowed to say anything. And my daughter kept talking, animated, and with her friend and with my grandson. My grandson didn't talk. It was weird with him, too. It was like, we had the short little lunch, and they made a comment about how they'd be so busy. They went over everything they were doing. They were going to be gone. And I realized after that was their trying to tell me, their excuse. I'm not going to see you for a long time. It was an escape. It was to get away from me. To get away, not from me, the mom, from the pain, the suffering. It's nonstop. And the bad stuff that happens. Always stuff happens. And one of you viewers wrote and said, like with my laptop not working, do you think it's the devil? Oh, yes, it is. And not malicious like this laptop thing wasn't evil or anything. It's technology. I don't know who could have. It took this tech guy quite a bit. I was on it was a good hour and a half. Him trying to figure this out. Professional, someone who does this for a living. So it wasn't just minor, but I don't have any sense with computers. So it wasn't really the devil doing anything to the computer. It happened, but the problem with it was that it compounded on top of what God revealed to me about my family, my kids, and why they cannot be around me. And sometimes not speak on the phone. It's rare. And why the son's totally cut off. Just can't take it anymore. All this suffering. And my son in particular can't stand the things that go wrong. He went through the trauma with the Catholic Church, with the parish stuff. How and the mystical stuff. Kids don't want their moms having bad stuff. Troubles with a priest not liking me or wanting me out, or and all of that is the devil, that kind of stuff. When it got into the spiritual things, definitely was the devil overtly causing issues. And God utilizing me. I had priest assignments, several of them. One parish to the next. Intentional from God for me to get I had things I was supposed to do for the church, for if there was a bad priest, bad stuff, other people didn't know, they didn't notice, they didn't do anything, God would show me. And then I'd have to follow through, and then that can create problem. Yes, I would love not to have been involved with these different priests or different situations in parishes. But that was part of what God had me do as a mystic. And the ecstasies even, all of that went on with that. So that kind of stuff affected my son a lot. And even when I became Catholic, I thought, oh, good, more peace. But oh my goodness, all hell broke loose. The devil didn't want me in the Catholic Church. This probably sounds weird, me even talking about it. But it's the reality of my life. And it's not unusual for mystics to have this kind of stuff. Not at all. And I would be, helped. I'd be given help. Joan of Arc appeared that one time. And I've already mentioned I've had 14 surgeries since I was 20 years old. 11 of them, either something went wrong or bad. From wrong to very bad. Failed to, and actually it was 12. I had that complication with the big spine surgery. So it's 12 surgeries out of 14, but the spine surgery was successful. It was just that, I couldn't breathe afterwards. So it had a problem with it, but it wasn't awful. But this is the situation. And what got to me was realizing that I did this to my kids. The pain did. And I didn't know enough then. Didn't have Google, didn't have research on these things to see that it's very bad for kids. All the different problems that can come from being reared by a mother with pain, and no other parent in the home. So the kids took on the responsibility, and it was heavy duty, especially when I would be in severe pain. The first 5 years, neighbors helping out, but I'd be given Demerol and Visceral injections that were very strong and have me knocked out for 24 to 36 hours. And then coming out of that, being sedated at home, the neighbors would come and check on them and different things and to live. And for a while there, one of the parents, not my neighbors, but someone from church, who this particular daughter I'm talking about, she had a little girlfriend, and her mother, the little girlfriend's mother, was trying to get it so that I couldn't have my children anymore. Well, my children, they didn't want to live with their dad. He lived elsewhere. So they were fearful then. They would be fearful. If something happened to me, if I had to go to the hospital, those kids would worry that something would happen to Mom, especially after the big surgery when I died in recovery. And the girls were old enough to know there I was in the hospital bed in our little tiny house. They'd already been through a divorce, too much trauma for them. But now, as adults, of course they all, and I hoped that my life would be normal, better, not so many bad things happen. But they do. The neighbor that was paranoid schizophrenic, there was a lot of demonic in with that. Not demonic like this demoniac in France who held me against my will till I escaped. It's a story I'll have to tell you now that my computer's working. And once I'm starting to feel better. I'm very shaken. I am very emotionally to the core shaken about the reality of my daughter, all three kids, but this is the third one and the one that um, had really put out, maybe it was her age or whatever, um, or ability with wanting to help or something in her personality that was more prone to wanting to help me. Um, Even as an adult, working on my neck or my back or my feet, terrible foot pain with arachnoiditis. And my neck is a mess. I've got a disc from the accident years ago that is bulging out and bone growth around it. It's very painful. But my neck by now is very bad, but not just from the bones sticking out. But she used to work on my neck to help my headaches, and the spinal headaches were horrific. This pump has helped somehow. Somehow, since the pump 3.5 years ago, I haven't had those terrible, terrible spinal headache sieges. Of other pain sieges, but not those, and those were killers. And the kids lived through all that when they were little, all through, to go off to college. I went through a period, it was something mystical. It was. I haven't talked about that. And it lasted from St. Francis de Sales Day through Easter. That year, it was 1996, it was, 1996, or maybe that was 97. I had times I didn't know if I was going to get up again or live. And then that daughter had just gone to college. Maybe she was a sophomore then. And she would call, please, Mom, please, you've got to eat. I got to the point I couldn't eat. I don't know why. And I couldn't get out of bed. I was like without energy, without nothing like this. It had mystical with it. Something was happening with me. It was some kind of a sacrifice, some kind of a suffering that God, He forewarned me of it even. And so she worried about that from college. And so that was traumatic. But then, the oldest daughter too. And they all, and my son, he even co-signed on the house on the island. So Mom would have a better life. And then it turned out that I'd been duped by the realtor, a Catholic realtor. And it was a teardown. I had been sold a teardown at age 62. And so took me 5.5 years. I had to learn construction and do all that. And I flew off the stairs in 2018. That was a year before it was finished, though. Survived that and got it sold and did well with it. But it's just one thing after another with my life. And then you add in all the mystical stuff, and they knew by the time they were 10 and on, they would, each of them about that age, Mom, you're different. You're not normal. You're not like other moms, but they would know things that would go around in the house. Definitely the oldest one remembers in our little house, our first little house that after we'd been broken into 6 times in 7 months and had to leave in the night, like at 8 o'clock at night, the police came, and by the time they were done, they had us leave for a while, and then they said, you can't stay here. You cannot stay here. It's not safe. And they were fairly sure that my ex-husband had been hiring people. No one else had been broken into in that neighborhood, and definitely not 6 times in 7 months. No, extreme stuff, weird stuff. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was they felt he was hiring people to do it. He wouldn't have done it himself. He was a principal then in another area, prestigious area he was, not where we had to move to. So, yeah, it just, but no, now to realize as an adult too, their careers are stressful enough. They love me, they want something, but the one she cannot take it. But I can't say that because no one wants to think that they can't, but she's pretty much has said it in other ways. But I didn't catch on until this lunch Friday when I saw the nuances, the body movement, and absolutely not. I couldn't say how, well, she noticed the shoulders. I said, yeah, but then that was it. Would not acknowledge anything. And I realized then too that I am pain. I have become pain. 40 years of constant pain. I have become pain. And pain has become who I am. But they can't hear it. They don't want to see it. They can't take it. They don't not on top, and she's got a high stress job. She's got a high stress job. And I understand now also why she said that she married somebody that was like her mother. It isn't the personality disorder that her husband had. It was awful how she stayed with him for 20 years. We didn't want her to marry him. And we kept hoping she would get out of it. And she admitted then, later, that she would have the first year. She was fearful of him. That wasn't me. She wasn't fearful, that I wasn't like that kind of person. But what it was is that he was very sick in his own way. And she ended up, having to take care to, in essence, had this person with his personality disorders. So it was like having another person that she had to help take care of. And I think that's how she felt, that she had taken care of her mother and then taken care of this man with his issues, even though my issues were physical, but not totally. When you have this high level pain, I didn't know all those years it was arachnoiditis. And the other aspect was I had no pain meds during those years when they were young. And that was really horrible. Really horrible. For me, suffering like that, but for them, having me suffer like that. It was terrible. And I had noticed in the last maybe 5-8 years with this particular daughter, she's become different with her. If she gets hurt or something, she will not allow it. She's very strict on it and very, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss an appointment. Here I am yapping. Anyway, I found out what it is, and she can't. And I cannot do this to them. I cannot let her call me or be around me. It's too much. It's too much. And that's hard for me. Very hard for me. You never want to think you've hurt your children. So anyway, that's part of it. I know God has a path ahead. But at the same time, this love to suffer and suffer to love has come up in my subconscious and to my conscious. And the whole scene from St. Michael the Archangel and the demons prior, how they left when he came in, when St. Michael came in and he thrust that spear through my heart. I was laying on the floor in this chapel, and it was 20 years ago, July 31st. This July 31st, 20 years ago. And he proclaimed, love to suffer and suffer to love. But I realize that that is my life direction. Now, that is my life. I must learn to love to suffer and suffer to love. And because that's my life. That's what it has been, and that's what it is and will be. And this is extra much suffering. The pain that I have felt in my heart of how my pain has affected my 3 adult children. And when they were little, I had no idea how hard it was for them. And the pain itself, on top of not having a regular mother, not an active one, not a normal one. They had a religious, mystic mother, and mystics are not appreciated. They're misunderstood. They're worth something if they have the gift of healing or something that the church wants. Something that will bring people in, or something that people will be excited about, or has some kind of temporal worth. And fame to it, like stigmata, external stigmata, where people will come, or gift of foretelling the future. People will come. Or you'll go out and all the parishes will want you to talk, or, it brings people in. It gets some hype going, and then people donate. Padre Pio built a whole hospital. People just start sending him money. So it's good, but it's not me. That's not the kind of mystic I am. And I'm the kind of mystic that God utilized me for things, but it wasn't things that they liked. The priest certainly didn't like me. And especially after that one that I had to report, and he was goofy enough. He was so excited that I knew about it through supernatural means. He told him how I knew. He told the bishop how I knew, how he was, what he was up to. Yeah, God would have me bilocate. I'd be over his right shoulder. I would know when he was on his computer looking at porn. And the next day I would say, stop. I was there. Nothing. He was sick. He couldn't stop, but he knew. He knew I knew through all. That's how I knew initially that he was, had a lust for young boys, and he had me fooled for a while because he'd flirt with this couple of young women, and threw people off, and then caused this one young woman all kinds of grief because people were gossiping, and they even thought I was having an affair with him because I was talking to him so much. And I was 12 years older. I was an old lady at the time. Not super old, not like now. It's been 20 years ago. So, that was that. And I don't mind. I'll do anything for God. I don't mind it myself. But it's how it affected my kids. Even church wasn't okay for me then. Here's this church that I loved. I was thrilled. It meant everything to me, and it still does. Not everything. God means everything. But then my kids saw that I was not allowed in parishes. And then the ecstasies happened, and the injuries with the ecstasies. They couldn't take all that. It's just always something with me. And now it's even more. My shoulders. Will I be able to finish the house? Probably not. I'm not hiring anyone. They take advantage. It's too stressful. So Yes, the devil beats on me all the time. It's always something. Um, but I make my own mistakes. You know why I got this, but I was running out of time and out of a place to stay, so I had to. And I liked the view, and I didn't know I had arachnoiditis. I didn't know I was going to need this massive surgery, or four more, or if this shoulder, my left shoulder, isn't doing better, might need that operated on. Didn't know I'd get anemia, my thyroid would go out. I have the precursor for the blood cancer, so they have to keep checking on that every year because it could go into that any time. So at this point, my kids genuinely, really, I think the daughter was better when we thought I was going to die from kidney failure. That was better. We were all better then, because it would be over. It would be over. What they have gone through. And this one, with me being in the area, it put pressure on her. And I was too wiped out last week to get to the grocery. I hadn't been for a couple of weeks, and so I was down to eating what was left. And she can't do it. She's working long hours, and she really can't handle being around me. I saw it. I realized I've seen it before, but I know now why. And she isn't going to be the one to not, though. She'll force herself like she did Friday. Forced an hour. And couldn't have anything in my life because it was suffering. She'd no. And another time to know it. Or other times she just changed the subject. I was going to tell her the results of the MRI. Oh, not the greatest. No, it's not. Good news. But they're not going to be able to operate on it. You have to take more pain meds for it. So I'm grateful for the pain meds. Thank God for them. So anyway, that's the situation. And it's been tough to deal with it for me because I feel terrible. And I'm a little upset with God, and I've told him that, how could he have my kids suffer like that? But by today, he reminded me what it would have been for them had they not had me and they'd had their dad to rear them. So, and they don't realize it, but someday they will, when we're all on the other side and all the truth comes out. But it's been huge. And I've tried three videos, and thankfully they didn't go through because I couldn't contain my emotions. And went on and on, even worse than this one. So I've got to call this Apple place because they were going to put new keyboard thing in. I'm going to have to set up another time because I was doing this video. Thought I'd be done sooner, of course. Well, God bless his real presence in us, and I honestly don't think I'm doing much good with the video. Maybe people who have children with and they have pain, or the big takeaway, and I'll maybe devote a separate thing to that, is understanding love to suffer and suffer to love, because that's my way forward. It's selfishly hard on me because that was sort of a support person, not sort of, big time, was this one daughter who had stayed close with me all these years, and been pulling away for 10, 12 years, but not, she's not the kind of person she can't live with herself to totally stay away, but she's got to. This was the thing her friend was talking about, how he says, "Oh, this is so weird," and she's serious, that she has become convinced that if you have pain in a body part, it should be amputated or removed. And I mentioned that to Dr. H, and he says, "Oh my." And he says, and of course she knows that you can't have your spine removed. You'd be dead. They can't do it. It would kill you immediately. The nerves is what keeps your heart and your brain going. So that's, but, it was just a bizarre and an extreme. But it's true, it would be great. I would have my knee removed if it would take away the knee pain I've got now. I would have my spine removed, my neck removed. I would have my shoulder removed. But that's, and this grandson was laughing around about it and all, but her friend said, no, she's been talking about this for a few days. And I realize it's just too much. The pain. Me, her mother, and all the stress of that. And she can't get away from it, can't get away from me. She felt obligated for this lunch, and they talked about all the places they're going. They're going all around the country. That's her work. She'll be doing clinics. All people hire her to come. And her friend is also a coach, and very talented, an announcer, very well spoken, and excellent player also. She's a pro, and that's how she'll be earning money, is going around different states and also England doing clinics. We're all very proud of her. Who'd have thought? She just started playing 6 years ago, getting her son involved in something for his homeschool PE. And she was great and very good and played a tournament, won, and the rest is history. She's a pro player, ranked high, and excellent. She's gifted as a teacher. That was her career area. And so she's teaching other people this sport. And but that was the point. And at the end, she says, "Well, that's so you'll know that won't be seeing you for a long time." Well, I didn't anyway. I hadn't seen her in ages. Well, I had maybe 3 weeks prior, but before that, it had been 5 months. She lived 6 miles away. So, and that's what I knew, but at least now I know what it is exactly. And I feel terrible about it, terrible. That my pain and my existence as pain, my identity as pain, has damaged my children, and her in particular, because she's been kept the ties longer, didn't want to cut off. And the other one moved away. I've mentioned going back. She doesn't want me moving there. And that was very painful for me, but I understand why now. They can't take it. They're damaged by it. The research come home to roost. But it's not my fault either. That's the problem. It's just how it is. And it's the epitome, for me, of love to suffer and suffer to love. Jesus did that on the cross. He did it his whole life. But I'm going to talk about this in another video exclusively. But for those of you who have handicaps of some sort or another, and if it affects your kids and stuff, or your families or your marriages, it's real. It's real. And it's can't be helped in some ways. I had them in therapy, but that was more related with their dad, visitation issues and things, and divorce. But I tried to get the oldest to go to therapy twice. I didn't recognize it was my pain, the suffering. I thought other traumas of, or just, didn't personality clash or something. But no, it's not that they don't love me or anything. But I'm sure how I was in horrible pain. I know my temper wasn't, I didn't have the patience I needed. Um, my voice, however, I couldn't be for them or do for them like a normal mother. And then I was a mystic. I was a weirdo in that regard. Back when they were little, it was sort of neat for them. But a dog went missing, and I could tell them where to. I'd had a waking vision of where it was, and I didn't know it was gone. But when they ran in, I said, it's Grace, isn't that their puppy? I said, go out into the field and call. Go right now, quick. She'll come. Because I had seen from inner sight when I was waking, had a waking vision. And the one daughter here, she's the one that came, Mom, God told you that, didn't she? Didn't he? God told you where she was. And I said, yes. And we thank God for that. So it had its advantages. And my vibes, being able to know, sort of see through people and stuff, it was helpful, but not now. No, it's more just another thing, just another oddity. And especially then the difficult parts, because mystics' lives aren't easy. Um, Even if you're not a mystic that has something that they want or can utilize temporally. Um, and or if you see things that they don't want you to see. Oh my goodness. The priests, they thought that I could see through all of them, I guess. It doesn't work that way. Only what God wants to show you. But he showed me Friday. All my grandson, he's pulled away. He was cold as stone, a cold stone. The friend was being very nice and personable. He always is. And my daughter seemed very hyper and just monopolized to make sure, just to get through it. It's like she had to talk. Well, like I do to distract from pain. She was doing it, but I was pain. I was pain for her to be around me, to see me even. And so, and I can take that as just that I'm going to have to be very firm. I'll have to explain it to her at some point. She'll be in denial because she wants to think she can do it, but she can't. And she knows it deep down, but um, I can't have her go through that. And I can't go through it. It's too painful for me also to realize that for my kids, just to be around me is painful for them. Brings back too much. And my whole life and how they thought it would be better and then it wasn't. It never is, because my life is pain. I am pain, and pain is me. And I have to get to the substance and the essence both of what is love to suffer and suffer to love. Because I don't love suffering, but I've got to get there big time. This is my life and this is my path forward. And I think it's probably everyone's life, because everyone's going to suffer at some point in time. My kids are suffering. They have suffered. They're not suffering so much now, as long as they can be away from me and don't have to hear about all the bad stuff that's happening. And I realize now that's why the daughter back in the Midwest didn't call like she said she would. She wanted to find, with the kidney failure thing, I was going to have more tests on a Monday. She was going to call that night to find out. She never called. And I realized that it's too hard, because they do love me, see? That's the thing. but they psychologically, they have trauma. They have PTSD stuff. Not overtly necessarily, but so all of it does affect those around us. Well, yes, other regular people, they don't want to hang. I can't do what they like to do anyway, and I don't want to, and that's why God had me be a hermit. Very practical. He knew what he was doing. It was very much so to protect me and to keep me in and to give me a place to understand. To model myself after hermit life, knowing I would not be able to do otherwise. But he knows me well that I would certainly have tried. And I do have to keep moving more and doing my work if I can, to try to keep from being bedridden. But I've been in bed all day. I've been in bed all weekend. Really all week. Be honest. My shoulders hurt too much. This hand's numb. God bless His real presence in us. And we keep going. Love to suffer and suffer to love. I'm going to have it on my gravestone if I have a gravestone. There's a key to the way forward with that. To the way forward for my life. Which, as Dr. H said when he called, he says, you are truly an island. And I am. And then when I thought I couldn't do the videos, this is a big outlet for me. Major outlet. Which I did think, well, God doesn't want me attached to it. I got attached. It's cathartic for me. Probably no help to anyone else, but it's helpful to me, I realize. Because writing is hard. My left shoulder hurts even all the way down typing. So I can yap. God bless.